All right, let's get into it. You see a football transfer rumor, right? It seems pretty standard, the kind of thing fans talk about every single day. But this one, a deal between these two clubs, it's just different. It carries this heavy history that a lot of people have forgotten, but one that both sides can never, ever truly escape.
So we're talking about Federico Chiesa. He's a star for Juventus, a big name for Italy. And the club that's supposedly interested, Liverpool. You know, a massive transfer between two of Europe's biggest clubs. On paper, it seems simple enough, just business, tactics, and money. But believe me, it is so much more than that. And look, if you just focus on the football, the debate is exactly what you'd expect. You've got fans looking at the price tag and thinking, hey, that's a bargain. Just like this person on Reddit says, for 15 million, it seems like a really smart piece of business for a team like Liverpool that's trying to compete on all fronts.
But then, of course, you've got the other side of the coin. The people who look at his recent injuries, his pretty hefty salary, and they see a player who's maybe lost a step. They see a risk, a potential flop. Is he really the same explosive player he used to be? And that's a totally fair question to ask. But you know what? All this chatter about price tags and current form, it completely misses the real story here. The heart of this isn't about one player's transfer value. It's about a ghost that has haunted the relationship between Liverpool and Juventus for decades. And to really get why this is so complicated, we have to go back in time, way back. So let's set the scene. The place is the Heysel Stadium in Brussels, Belgium. The date is May 29, 1985. And the event? Well, it was the biggest game in European club football, the European Cup final, Liverpool versus Juventus. It was supposed to be the pinnacle of the sport. Instead, it became one of its absolute darkest days. If you look at the timeline here, you can see just how quickly everything went south. About an hour before kickoff, some confrontations start up. Just 30 minutes later, it turns into an absolute catastrophe when a retaining wall crumbles under the pressure of a crowd surge. And then, unbelievably, the match actually kicks off. The officials were terrified that if they called it off, the violence would spill out and get even worse across the city.
39. That's the number. 39 people died. They were just fans who went to a football match and never came home. 32 of them were Italian. The others were Belgian, French. There was even an Irish academic there who wasn't a fan. He was just with a friend.
The reports from the time, they couldn't find the words to describe what they saw. This quote really captures it. The sheer horror of it all without having to show you the graphic images. It was, quite simply, a nightmare.
So, in the chaos that followed, people wanted answers. And more than that, they wanted someone to blame. The official response was immediate. There was no hesitation. The finger was pointed in one, and only one, direction.
Just one day. One day after the disaster, UEFA, European football's governing body, released this statement. And it was absolute. It said the entire responsibility for the deaths of 39 people was on the Liverpool supporters. Period. Case closed.
But here's the thing. Was it really that simple? Not even close. As you can see here, that initial verdict just completely ignored so many other critical factors. The stadium itself was literally falling apart. It had been condemned. The policing was a mess. The barriers separating the fans was basically just chicken wire. Ticketing was all wrong, leading to dangerous overcrowding. And there were reports of provocation too. These aren't excuses, but they are crucial pieces of context that just got swept under the rug.
You see, Heysel didn't just tragically end 39 lives. It fundamentally and permanently changed the face of football in England and all across Europe. The consequences were severe, they were far-reaching, and they were felt for years and years. And the punishment? It was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. All English clubs were banned from playing in Europe for 5 years. Liverpool got an extra year, a 6-year ban. This basically sent English football into the wilderness, crippling clubs financially and robbing an entire generation of players and fans of the chance to compete at the highest level. The disaster also changed the very places people went to watch a match. The stadiums themselves were completely transformed, a process that was sadly sped up by the Hillsborough disaster 4 years later. Before, you had standing terraces and these high fences to keep people off the pitch. But afterwards, a famous report called the Taylor Report came out and basically demanded a total overhaul. The fences came down, standing terraces were replaced with seats, and a whole new safety authority was created. The entire experience of going to a football match in England was completely remade. The laws themselves changed too. Throughout the late 80s and early 90s, a whole wave of legislation gave the authorities brand new powers to control football fans. Things like banning orders became common, and stuff that might have been overlooked before, like throwing things or running onto the pitch, became actual criminal offenses. It was a direct attempt to tackle the hooliganism problem that had been plaguing the sport for years.
And this is the really crucial part, right? That story that was set in stone back in 1985, the blame the fans first story, it didn't just go away. It created a prejudice, an echo that has kept ringing through the decades. And it popped up again as recently as 2022.
We're looking at this statement again for a very specific reason. This wasn't just a casual comment. It was an official institution declaring an entire group of fans guilty. And remember that wording, no doubt. That kind of certainty creates a powerful bias, one that really sticks around.
Now let's jump forward 37 years to the Champions League final in Paris in 2022. There was chaos outside the stadium, Liverpool fans were being tear-gassed, and the immediate reaction from the authorities, well, it sounded eerily familiar. As this academic pointed out, that old association from Heysel just kicked right back in. The default setting, once again, was to blame the fans.
But, just like back in '85, that first draft of history was wrong. A major independent report, one that UEFA itself commissioned, later came out and completely cleared the fans. It concluded that the disaster was caused by UEFA's own shocking failures in organization and by aggressive policing. For so many people, this wasn't just about being proven right, it was a painful reminder of how fast that blame the fan template born in 1985 could be pulled out and used all over again.
And all of that brings us right back to where we started, back to a transfer rumor that is anything but simple. This was never just about a player's salary or how he fits into a team. It's about memory, it's about responsibility, and it's about the incredibly difficult, messy process of trying to find reconciliation.
Okay, so fast forward to 2005. 20 years have passed, and the two clubs meet again. On the famous cop stand at Anfield, the Liverpool fans created this huge mosaic that spelled out amicizia, the Italian word for friendship. It was a well-meaning gesture, a genuine attempt at peace, but it wasn't accepted by everyone. In the away section, many Juventus fans simply turned their backs. It was a silent protest, showing that for them, the wounds were still way too raw.
And you know, some people have argued that maybe a different phrase would have been more powerful. Not friendship, which can feel a little cheap or unearned, but chiedo perdono. I ask for forgiveness. It's a phrase that admits responsibility, that expresses real regret, and tries to build a bridge from a place of humility.
And make no mistake, the 39 victims are not forgotten. At Anfield, Liverpool Stadium, there's a public memorial plaque right on one of the main stands. There's another one inside the club museum. And in the city itself, there's a memorial tree that stands as a living tribute. These are the quiet, constant reminders of the human toll of that day.
And that's why this transfer, or any big deal between these two clubs, is never just about the money. It forces all of us to look back at this painful history and ask this really difficult question. The world of 1980s football, with its crumbling stadiums and violence, is hopefully gone for good. But the memories, the pain, and the questions of responsibility, they all remain. So how do we properly remember a disaster from a world we've lost? And what does it really mean to move forward?